Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is Franz Sidney. I'm very excited to have you today in Create with Franz. And today we have a very special guest all the way from Texas. So I want to say hello to you, Melody. Nice to see you here.
Howdy.
Howdy. I love that. So today, if my throat allows me to talk, that is going to be amazing. We are so excited to bring to you something about the fingerprint of God and how we can find out God's patterns everywhere in our body, in our cells, in the nature, and how everything works. We can find out this by going deeper into understanding these mechanisms, how they're created, how they're found, even with something that I talked about before with Neris, and it's called Pilates. And Melody is a specialist in that, and she's got a very, very important and juicy story to tell you about how she understood how all these systems work and how we can use them to overcome trauma, to overcome pain, to create the real life that we deserve. Because let's say it, nowadays, between social media, bad news, killing, shootings, disease, it's just terrible. We can really feel traumatized over and over and over by reading, by hearing, by talking, and by just having a difficult life. So it's important to get this pain, this trauma out of the body. And for me, it's always been the case. I always promote art, music, dance, movement, touch, equine therapy. And now we're going to hear a lot about how God is involved with this. For those of you who are curious about it, let's start and find out perhaps how you got started in this amazing journey.
Well, I've always been curious about the meaning of life from a small. Um, I remember being in high school and being very disappointed with what was motivating everyone, and I felt that it was very shallow. And even at 18, I took off to Paris, and everybody else went off to college. I went to Paris, and it sounded really glamorous, but I was an au pair and I was working for a family. And while I was in Paris, I was reading Taoism. I was reading Alan Watts. I was exploring all these different explanations of why we're here. What are we here for? What are we doing? And that motivation might have been because of my family's, my parents got divorced at 10. Um, I observed my dad and his depression, and I wanted more meaning. And I think that's what underlying is, why are we here? What is it that other families have that I don't? And I firmly believe now at the very as I've transversed and gone through from Paris, I moved to Denver, and then Denver, I moved to Houston, and then from I moved to LA. I lived in Antwerp in Belgium. I've lived Chicago, and after LA, I came home and I opened up my own business. And there's nothing like waking up and discovering what you're all about and how you're going to survive when you open your own business. I've learned many life lessons. And by doing this, I've had the studio for 23, we're going to 23 years. I opened it in 2002, right after 9/11. So I have, as you evolve through life and you learn your lessons, or you're supposed to, you realize that Christian foundation is what we are, a country founded on Christianity. And if you're not brought up within it, you understand now how important it is to have a rock, a foundation upon which to grow a family. And so I that's where I am now at the very end. I don't want to say end because it's not like I'm saying it's the end of my life, but I think of time as a spiral, as a slinky, you know, as you pull it apart, you can see the patterns and how you evolve in life. And if you have certain patterns in your life that you keep repeating, or as we go through trauma, and how to evolve as a person to become consciously aware, to have conscious control, to stay in balance. And I'm after I opened my business and started teaching Pilates, and you realize that movement is the key in the doorway into self-control, self-awareness. And now, of course, I'm writing this book, this workbook called Motion of Emotion, and it identifies your trauma through color and movement and sound and Pilates and awareness about color, movement, sound, and words. The words that we use, the words that we speak have frequency, they have power. So even in the beginning of the Bible, it says, and the word was with God. And so my workbook ties all of this together. And after 23 years of teaching teachers how to teach, I'm now taking it to an expanded level, because you can teach a movement pattern, and it'll change your body, but you also have to change your emotion. You also have to change your perspective, perspective. And, that spiral again, life is about becoming wise through our experiences of polarities, positive, negative, and the balance of life. True transformation. Yes, you can do Pilates and transform your abs. You can transform your legs. You can transform your core. You can have better posture. But true transformation is in the heart. That's the transmutation. That's where this is. And you either accept it or you don't. You can fight it and stay in flight, fight, and most of us are so stressed out these days because of, like what you said, we've been through so much trauma, and it's not all of our fault. COVID was a huge traumatic event. It affected my kids, still affects my kids. Even though it's how many years later are we? 4 or 5 years. Losing my studio caused trauma. I am just now rebuilding. It's taken me probably 4 years to rebuild to where I was pre-COVID, because my business was shut down. I went through a divorce during COVID and menopause during COVID. So I have a lot of trauma, and then everybody does. And this is, trauma is held in the body, and we are buried in our trauma. We don't realize how much emotion is held in the body or trapped in the body in our fascia. And so I know I'm kind of going on and on, but after recovering from COVID, getting my business going back up, going through a divorce, moving to the farm where I have horses and everything else, it's beautiful living in nature because it has a calming effect on you. And we've been here 2 years, and I want to take all my experience in all my travels and my study of color and sound and movement. I have a dance degree as well. And I was originally when I lived in LA, I was trying to go to to UCLA, to their dance movement therapy program, and I didn't get in. And instead of reapplying, I just figured out how to survive in LA for 10 years. And then I moved home and opened up my studio, and I haven't stopped that. I haven't stopped. So after all of these years and going through so much movement and dance and wanting to give back, I've created the system of self-awareness, taking sound, taking color, taking rhythm, and rewiring the brain, because we cannot change a pattern in the body unless we have a new pattern. So hence this conversation that we're having today. And I think it's really fascinating to have scientists that have been around for a really long time. They're all saying the same thing about the divinity of who we are and our capacity to turn on our inner physician and heal ourselves. We have that capacity. We don't need a middleman. We need our will and our desire and openness to be creative, to try new ways of helping self. And Pilates is just my metaphor for transformation, and what I'm bringing to the table, and how I want to help other women not stay in a abusive marriage, how to break out, because I was in that pattern. I'd filed for divorce 3 times, and I don't want women to have to go through the trauma that I went through. And so going back to trauma, we had COVID happen, divorce happen, menopause happen, losing my business happen, and now we're at the end of it. And these are the techniques that I use to go through it, teaching Pilates, doing color awareness, doing sound, and doing movement that represents that color and that sound. So
Wow.
here we are. Do you have any questions? That was a
Well,
very long-winded introduction.
small introduction, everyone. Yeah, I like all this, and I like that you are showing that it is possible for us to rise back like a phoenix. And I remember when I was starting my podcast, which was 2020 in July. So that's why I've just done 5 years. It was in the middle of lockdown. We had a year and a half lockdown in England. It was very difficult. And I remember everyone was so flat and depressed because it wasn't COVID. It was a response of a government to COVID. They shut everything down. Big difference. Just saying. So they could have left us to decide. So there wouldn't be all this trauma, people not going to school for years. But it did happen. So there were a lot of people that were going through a difficult time through the business, and or maybe they were ill, they couldn't go to a hospital. So it was a very traumatic thing. And I hear people in 2025 still blaming COVID for everything. And sometimes we haven't moved through this trauma and we're still stuck in there. And so this happened to me, so I'm done. I can never do my business. I can never find a partner. I can never heal because everything went wrong. So I'm not good enough for this. I don't deserve this. So there are all these emotions that we have and false beliefs that we really don't deserve to be well. But sometimes it's all here in the mind. We have to get it out, shake it off, and realize we're all deserving a measure of happiness depending on our circumstances. What I really like is that you made a lot of comments in our previous conversations about how science, physics, and mathematics all point to this divine design. It's everywhere. So if you look at a sunflower or the DNA, there is this golden ratio that we found out exists. It's everywhere. So there is this amazing thing that we can do and look at the body as a creation from somebody way more intelligent than us who knows exactly how to fix it. And we can connect to this intentional design, to the creator of a design, through very physical ways, which is to be in touch again. Isn't that the opposite of what devices are doing? So if I spend the whole day, my telephone, the whole day with a device in our hands, that's all we are feeling. But when we are in a farm, or when we are taking care of a plant, when we are taking care of maybe of an animal or hugging a child, we have a different experience. And in fact, it's the baby with the mom when versus nursing time versus bonding, when the oxytocin, which men do not produce if they were to breastfeed the baby. So all these things for me are like, gosh, we're designed for this connection. We're not designed to stay home the whole day trapped in a cage, doing electronics. We are supposed to go out. And it seems to be there's all this violence that we see, mental illness. There are many cases where there are people that are literally stuck at home the whole day on a device. They lost touch of what it's like to be connected to what their body is saying, to what the emotions are screaming, and then they overreact to things. Is that my opinion only, or is that your experience as well?
I'm right there with you. It's a tool. In the right hands, that device can be used to connect, right? So it's like a knife. As a chef, you can use the knife to kill, you can use the knife to create art and fabulous meals. It is, I know it's the way that we stay connected during COVID, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. It is, especially young people are now, all of their social, they can all be sitting in the same room and they're communicating through the device instead of looking into eye contact. And yes, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, and all these things that your brain will create. Your stomach, your enteric nervous system creates 70% of your dopamine, right? And serotonin. So how do I get my enteric nervous system, the brain of the gut, to activate? How do I turn on my inner physician? At least we have a tool. We're using this tool now to communicate, to connect. And the more dots we can connect, like these amazing scientists that have come before us, like Victor Schauberger and Tesla and Fibonacci and Mark Rodin and Dr. Emoto, who were showing through mathematics, geometry, this amazing divine design. Could we use this device to actually help people can reconnect to themselves? The workbook that I'm creating, you can download it. It's an ebook. It's 4-week program. It's going to teach you how to take your body, identify an emotion, identify a pattern, a feeling, take that anger that's over here on the limited negative side and take it to the positive side of that emotion. So we can identify red as anger. We don't have to re-experience the trauma. We don't have to be triggered by the trauma, but we can do a movement, a rhythm, and a sound to hook into what our divinely designed body will already do, right? And we're living in such a fast-paced, we're bombarded with negativity and trauma. Just last week, we were bombarded with a beheading in Dallas, a school shooting, a, a Christian man, Charlie Kirk, was assassinated. This past week, if you're looking at the body of Christ or the body of the United States as a consciousness, that body was traumatized last week. Regardless if you believe it or not, like Jung with your the consciousness that was created through fear, through COVID, that affected all of us physically because trauma is held in our group mind and our group body, so to speak. And the tools that we use now to connect and to communicate, so they can be done to create more trauma, like you said, and be more disconnected, or we can use them to reach through, like, how many people can I reach through this methodology, through technology? How, if I use too much scripture in my workbook, I'm afraid I'm going to alienate non-Christians. So I want to reach as many people about the possibility of their ability to heal themselves. I don't think people understand the capacity that they have to be their own healer, to be their own body lama. They don't need a guru. They just need to believe in themselves that they have the capacity as God's children to transform, to transmute. Like Christ said, you will do more things than I. Remember, that was part of the scripture. That was part of his teachings. And of all the people I've studied, from Buddha to, all the great teachers, I think Christ was the one who really was, he was healing the sick, he was healing the blind, he was able to channel God. And he left all of these messages for us through his disciples about how to do it. And he said, you will do it. Well, how do we do that? How do we hook into our inner physician? How do we hook into our Christ consciousness? How do we become a believer in what he was teaching? And everybody's been teaching it, but the divinity of being here on the planet, we're only here for a very short period of time. How is it that we've lost so much of our godness, our divinity, and our belief? Eh, Right? I mean, it's, you know,
We could talk about that for 2 more episodes because it is so
right,
much. And I
exactly.
think I think now we are in this great revival. So in the next 5, 10 years, people have been asking themselves, what is all this rat race for? Because in the end, when you die, you're not gonna look at, oh, I got 10 millions, I'm gonna die. That makes me so happy. No, we're gonna say, how are my relationships? Did I love people? Did I change any lives in my life? That's what counts in the end when you look back. And some people, maybe they've been chasing the wrong dreams, and especially in the last week, because we are recording in September, this episode will go up in October, so it's different. But we feel that a lot of people are asking themselves, so what was the purpose of me being here? I can die any minute. I can get a disease, get an accident, I can be shot. And so it is important to get the trauma out and ask ourselves our lesson. And sometimes we just need to slow down. And this is so
And
difficult because we're always running, even little kids that have so many things to do after school, the sport, the choir, the activity. They're just never home with the parents. I think, the family is broken down many years ago now. So I think there's so many things we can do. But what I would like to hear from you, what would be a strategy that you would suggest? Say the famous 3 tips on my show, right? If I'm a person that I'm realizing in this moment, right, I am not in touch with my body, maybe I'm experiencing emotional eating, maybe I'm having panic attacks, maybe I have no faith in the future. A lot of Gen Z people are never going to have children. I don't want to put them in this world. Maybe I have no faith, no hope then my life can be better. If I'm stuck in this circular, vicious way of thinking that everything is bad, what could I possibly do today to start stepping out of this kind of victim mode?
yeah, so victim mode and fear, right? Fear is what we associate with blue, the color blue, right? Anxiety, fear is frozen water, right? So you're 90% water, aren't you? You're inside this biosuit. You are water. You're 90, blood, viscera, and water. By the time you add it all up, it's 90%. So if you think of fear being frozen water, you're stuck in your parasympathetic nervous system over here in fawn mode, whatever that person went through, right? If they can identify that's the color blue and I'm stuck, how do I unfreeze myself? How do I take blue over here to love, empathy, compassion, right? The beautiful blue that's not muddy. And how do I get this water flowing internally inside of self? Well, one of the best ways to come out of frozen mode, out of fight, flight, or fawn, is to simply move. But what if blue had a sound? You can all go outside and walk around the block and feel better, right? And develop your self-esteem, and that turns on your inner physician and your endorphins. But what if you were consciously aware that I need to move blue out of fear into the positive aspect of being stuck in fear over here to the other polarity of love? So blue is a 1, 2, 1, 2, and you move the 1, 2. Have you ever watched a horse walk? And it has a beautiful, gentle 1, 2. Well, you walk the blue and it's a 1, 2 rhythm. It's like a wave. It's like inhale and exhale. It's mother, right? It's that whole frequency. You need to be, that person's over here in fear. We need to pull them over here into love, acceptance. I had to go through this experience. I'm not blaming anybody. It's what I experienced. The color and the sound and the movement doesn't do the processing for me. It's all about self-acceptance. And it's an experienced knowing that I bless what I had, I bless who I am, and I'm going to do something about it. And the sound of blue to make for the heart is, and this is known through science that, they use colors to identify emotions for children. They're using sound therapy now because it resonates certain organs in the body that stimulates the vagus nerve, which hooks into your rest, digest, and calm. So it's a simple hack into the peripheral nervous system to find safety. We need safety. We all need to be over here in safety mode where blue is, all of us. So the sound of blue is O, 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 O. And you can get that O down into the heart and as deep as you can, right? So you can do the 1, 2 movement with O, and it turns into a hum. And science now proves that humming hooks you into your parasympathetic nervous system. So you can wear blue. You can do, I have this, you can do, have you heard of Dr. Emoto and what he did with water and science? Can I segue? Okay, so I'm going to segue into Dr. Emoto and Japanese scientist. He did all these experiments on water. And remember, we're 90% water. So he took polluted water. I'm paraphrasing, of course, and I'm just going to wrap this up as fast as possible because we only have 40 minutes. But his work represents so much of how I want people to understand how divinely designed they are. So water holds frequency and tension, your fascia system, right? The brain of the second brain of the body. They've done all this study on Thomas Myers with how fascia is the fibrous network that goes around and spirals around all muscles. And it's so watery and it's holding that it responds to intention. So hold that thought for a second. Dr. Emoto over here did these experiments on water. He took polluted water and he wrote in jars, and he wrote love, mercy, compassion. He did all these different words. And then he did on another jar full of water, he wrote hate, anger. Then he froze the water. And then he took microscopes and studied the geometric shapes of the composition of the water. Love were beautiful geometric shapes and organized like the building blocks of life that other scientists and Johannes Kepler, Kepler, the mathematician, that said geometry is being close to God. He was a Christian. It's reflected in the water. And then he took the water that had hate on the vessel and it was completely fragmented. So he did this with water, he did it with food, and he did it with music. And of course, he's this brilliant scientist that's teaching us how our thoughts and our words affect us physically on every level. Candace Pert, who wrote neuroscientists who did molecules of emotion, fascinating that your brain is hardwired and will release neuropeptides that go into every single cell in your body and unlock it like a lock, that cascade. So people are addicted to anger. People are addicted to fear. People are addicted to their story so that it becomes their biology. Another doctor, Dr. Carolyn Mice, wrote about this as well. So let's go back to the person that's frozen over here in fear and victimness and blue, right? Let's identify our trauma through not having to re-experience, but let's identify it through color so we can identify certain patterns because we can identify that emotion connected to that color. And let's change the frequency. Let's do movement and sound, right? With awareness, with purpose, with intention, because you're 90% water. So your words matter. So you're taking this experience and pulling it over here into love, acceptance. It's a higher vibrational frequency because you're 90% water. So if you could even write love on your body, would that affect your water inside? And I think it does. Your thoughts, your words, and what you say matters. So somebody who is in over here in the limited side of the color can move, vibrate, and sound out into a higher frequency of self-acceptance. All right? Doesn't take you through the experience. It won't take you out of the pain. It won't take you out of the pain. So the pain of the experience that I had to go through is now over here in wisdom, which is white, right? White is a synthesis of all color. Red, blue, yellow, green, orange, purple, violet, indigo, and then white. And this is all the electromagnetic reality that we live in. Everything's positive, negative, right? We have in our visible light spectrum. So red is a shorter frequency than white light. It's just fascinating how math, music, color, they all line up. I'm not sure why this isn't taught in school.
Who knows? Who knows? I think that maybe
it's almost like they want us over here in fear mode, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing, conspiracy theory. Well, what we've been taught in the last 30 years is that faith and science are opposite. But actually, they are just two languages that God will use to talk to us, and mathematics are just the patterns of His amazing creation. That's all it is. And we only have 4 minutes. We can't go deeper and deeper. But you guys listening, can you understand what this means? It means that what we say to ourselves every day, what we hear, what we read, what we wear, the messages that we put on our t-shirts, on our skin, for tattoos, the movies we watch, they all have this effect on our mind. And once we tell something to our brain, guess what? It believes it. That's what Marisa Peer always taught us when she was teaching us RTT. We are what we think we are, and we have very importantly focused on the wrong thing most of the times, the symptom. But what is behind is what we actually believe in. We're creating, we're manifesting something that sometimes is not the right thing. And so if we keep saying, I'm going to fail, I'm never going to get better, that's what's going to happen. You are going to fail because that's what you're saying to yourself. So you're preparing everything. Just listen once to Bruce Lipton. One of his people, or Joe Dispenza, if you like the guy, Andrew Huberman, who teaches neuroscience. And they always say, what you're saying to yourself is going to happen because you believe it. You repeat it. Your body, your cells, your matrix will prepare for that to happen. So the final message before we close down is to really understand that God is not your enemy. God loves you. Because of that, He creates the universe for all of us to use, to be joyful, to be happy. The universe is not created to hate one another, to kill one another, is to give. is to love. But if we don't even love ourselves, if we don't even connect to ourselves because we are just trying to please the crowds, otherwise we're not popular, how are we going to get to this connection? So let's use the music, the vibration, the Pilates, whatever method is going to work so we can reconnect to ourselves, to nature. And as we do that, we can connect back to God. Isn't that the final message? That we can find profound happiness, even in disease and tragedy, because these are part of life.
Yeah.
But there's always a measure of peace we can find when we connect, and we have 2 minutes.
Yes. Was it Joseph Campbell, who wrote The Power of Myth? And, you have to participate in the sorrows of the world. You have to decide to participate and I think it's so important that I've done it for myself. So I've been a teacher for many years. And I teach Pilates from a divine perspective. I teach women how to start appreciating and not cutting down when they talk about their bodies. I don't allow it. And because of what you say to yourself is really, really important. And there's certain techniques that people can do to hack into their rest, digest, and safety mode. Pilates is one way to find that by you rolling on the spine. The Pilates is the only system of movement that is rolling on the spine, right? Your central nervous system is there. I'm just saying, start doing Pilates.
Start doing Pilates today. I've gotten at least 3 episodes about this. You guys, you listen. This was the introduction. Melody can tell you more, so you can visit her website, see what she has to say, see if it resonates. Share this episode with somebody who might be a little bit
Yes.
stuck, who is always angry, who's
Yeah.
always, because you need to go deeper in this, and I cannot do it all in 1 minute. So thank you so much for being with us
You're very
today.
welcome. That was fun.
That was huge.
ThePilatesCowgirl.com is the website that has the motion of emotion on it.
Yeah, read description. It will all be there. Thank you so much,
Great.
everyone. Make sure you leave a good review and subscribe, and see you next week. Bye.